Hello, welcome to my garden in Norfolk. My name's Emma and this is my channel called Emma's Life in Norfolk, where I post videos related to my garden, making changes to my garden, improving my garden, getting tidier in my garden, and also other things in my life. So there's sometimes other videos that I post if I'm out and about in Norfolk or a little bit further afield. So in my last video I talked about how I really wanted to cut back this hedge. Now the challenge, as I explained the other day, is that the hedge is ours and the fence is ours. The fence has never been put on the boundary line. The fence is actually in our garden. Our next door neighbours seem to be similar to the neighbours that we had before, in that they quite like greenery and trees as long as they're in someone else's garden. The neighbours that left didn't like our ash trees, they didn't like hedges, they cut all their trees down to stumps. So they had stumps where they used to hang bird feeders on, but with no branches and no leaves, sadly. So some of the video is fast forwarded, so it's quicker, and other parts of it are in real time. And isn't it lovely how you can see the sun coming through because spring is returning? And I also left it so you could hear all the birds. So it was really nice to watch the light coming through as I cut more and more of the hedge. I really was pleased to see that. Because of the trees that I've got in the garden, I do have quite a lot of shade, so I'm quite happy for that hedge to stay about 6 foot tall, but it had got to about 8 foot tall. And as I said, that was creating a lot of shade in the garden, along with the 3 ash trees that we have. I remember a few years ago, I was thinking about getting a tortoise. I'd really like a tortoise, and I was thinking about getting one from this tortoise like sanctuary place. And I had to take photographs of the garden, and the lady replied, "Do you have any sun in your garden?" And when I looked back at the pictures, I thought, oh my goodness, I can see what you mean. I do have a lot of shade. So that's made me more aware of just keeping things trimmed back, just keep on top of things really, because things can easily just get bigger and bigger and bigger. That's why we get the trees cut every couple of years as well. The council actually recommends not to cut the trees because they're ash trees, but we don't want them kind of taking over the entire garden. So you can really see the light coming through, which I liked. So I should think all in all, I took about 2 feet off. I only used like the little hand clippers, and I'm sure someone will be thinking, why don't you use an electronic, a big like sort of cutter to go right across it? But because of the nature of laurel, I felt like that would have been harder. And also you can see I'm slightly precarious really on this ladder. I'm sure if members of my family had seen me on this ladder, they'd have told me not to do this. I did have to move some of the plants out to one side, and I managed to get it all done apart from a little bit at the end, and I was so determined I managed just to cut the end bit as well, so that was good. I don't know what it looks like on the neighbour's side because the fence is probably only about 3 foot tall, and then they've got sort of the greenery, lovely greenery, which is all our side. The neighbour has spoken to my husband about wanting to put fence all the way along the driveway in the front garden. Now this is going to be an interesting issue really. He's cut back a lot of our hedge in another area, and I don't mind him doing that. Anything that's encroaching in his garden, of course he can cut back. But what they don't realise is that actually if we were to put a fence on the boundary line, he would no longer be able to get down the side of his house, just because the neighbour has removed, the previous neighbour moved the boundary posts and did all sorts with the boundary in order so they could have a decent amount of space at the side of their house. So I did say to them at the time, well, you're not supposed, they said the boundary post was in the way. And I said, well, that's kind of where the boundary post is. They said, well, we want to move the boundary post. I said, well, you're not supposed to move the boundary post. But there you go. Some people just rules to themselves, aren't they? So that evening he decided to pull out the boundary post. But we know exactly where the boundary is. So if they choose to put a fence along the boundary line, it will make it a lot harder for them. I do think it's a shame. I understand people want to put their stamp on a house and on a garden, but I always think it's sad when the first thing people do is cut down like anything green, move into a new house and cut all the trees down, cut all the hedges down and replace them with fences, pull up all the grass and put plastic down. It's a great shame. I was also being very careful not to knock the hedgehog house. So I was being careful around that as well. So you'll see me cut right back the hedge, cut the top off, and then also I trim a couple of my shrubs. Now what I wanted to also do is read through some of your comments. So thank you so much to those of you that have taken the time to add comments to my little channel. It's only got 300 subscribers. If you haven't already subscribed, please do consider subscribing. Thank you. I'm going to read through some of your comments now. So Stacey from Virginia says, I love your garden, it's super pretty. Thank you so much for sharing. Great video, I loved watching. Donna Sampson Donna says, I'm new to you. I love your garden. I have a much smaller garden, but I have loads of plants and I love watching you for ideas. Thank you, Donna. I'm sure we can give each other ideas, because even if you've got a small garden, you can still do so much. Lisa Malone says, very nice. I enjoy seeing the garden. Angela Wag says, great job, Emma. Lovely garden. I've been in the garden this week. The first signs of spring crocus and snowdrops are here in Staffordshire. Oh, I love that. I absolutely love that. Crocuses, snowdrops, and then we'll get the tete-a-tete and the daffodils and tulips. I love it. Linda Newton says, wow, what a lot of plant pots you have. I've got too many. How cute having a hedgehog living in your garden. I know. That just, honestly, that makes my day. That made my month when I realised it was sleeping in my hedgehog house. I'm going to get a new hedgehog house, hopefully for my birthday. I think it needs to have something that's a little bit less damp. My rusty garden says, oh, it'll be lovely come later in spring. I can't grow crocuses in the lawn. The rabbits would eat them all. Happy gardening, Emma, from Ali. And she's done a Canadian flag. Thank you, Ali. Cami Hell says, wow, you have hundreds of pots. I've never seen so many in one yard. Haha, I can't wait to see how you tidy this up. Where do you find the time? Somebody's written in Arabic and put, may God bless you. Thank you, and God bless you too. And then Judy Acklin is a new sub. I can't wait to see what comes up and blooms in each pot. From Judy in Texas. So thank you very, very much for your lovely comments. So I changed the angle of the camera so you could see how much I've cut off. Really a great deal. Looks like there's like half a tree on the floor. Well, maybe not half a tree, but it does look like a lot, doesn't there? So I filled up the brown bin. Now what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get rid of some of that old soil. You know, that soil from my previous project, which is taking up a lot of space in my working area. So I'm going to, each time the brown bin's collected, I'm going to try to get rid of some. So I've filled it, first got loads of leaf matter in the bottom, then filled it with laurel, then put some soil which weighted it down, then I put some more laurel. Obviously I can't fill it up with soil because the council will probably be on my case. But it's only a little bit, no more than if someone just emptied out a few pots, which often people do, don't they? So you can see already, by taking it right back, I'm really opening up that area. So I still want that area to be like, you know, cosy and kind of a little secret area to be able to sit and relax. But I don't want it to be so damp in there. A few bits kind of came flying down. I was a bit worried that they were going to hit my Fatsia or my Jerusalem artichoke, which I wouldn't have liked. I can't believe I've got a big, I can't think of the name at the moment, the plant on the right, the name escapes me. That has survived all winter though, and that will flower probably in about a month's time, 2 months' time. I'll probably remember the name of it once I finish this video. Some of those bits that I'm throwing down are really massive branches. So I guess the last time I cut this back was probably 2 years ago. So it's 2 years growth, but hopefully I've cut it back at the right time where I'll get lots of new growth and that will fill in some of the gaps. I also noticed further along where I put some new laurel, even though the soil there is quite poor because I've got my ash trees there, that new laurel is really doing very, very well. So I was really pleased with that, but I will trim it. Because I think if you trim it, it doesn't get too leggy. So I'll trim it just so it kind of bushes out a bit more. But I do love these glossy leaves. And I did manage to get quite a lot done in quite a short period of time. So I've remembered the name of that plant, wallflowers. They're wallflowers there. So obviously often they go next to walls, but not there. I grew them from seed. And they flower really, really nicely. I don't necessarily want it there. I'd like to move it over the other side, but at the moment I don't want to move anything in that area because of the hedgehog and the house. But you can really see the amount I cut off when you compare the bit that I've cut to the bit that's left. Now in a bit you will see I try to go the other side of the trellis, and I try to get to the laurel where it's gone over, but I couldn't. I need to move a shelving unit which is covered in pots. I need to move loads of plastic containers that I put over my seedlings that are there in storage, but because I've left them the wrong way up, they're full of water. I need to squeeze past a water pump and 2 big pots that had potatoes in last year. So that wasn't something that I could do easily. So I did end up stretching a bit too much. I wouldn't recommend that anybody tries to do this themselves, because you could easily fall off the ladder and hurt yourself. So as well as filling up the brown bin, I also filled up a whole of a garden bag. So what I'll do is, once the brown bin's collected next week, that by that point the garden bag will have rotted down a little bit, and then I'll tip the garden bag into the brown bin. So I did just want to say, although I like gardening, I'm by far from an expert. I know quite a lot of the names of plants, but sometimes I'll forget, or I'll know the common name and not the Latin name, or the Latin name and not the common name. I'm still very much learning. So a few people have written on my page, or I'll get some tips from you. Well, I'll be very pleased if you do get some tips from me, but I am very much learning and will learn from ideas and suggestions that you all have. So now I've finished cutting the hedge, my next job to finish off or tidy up this sort of area is I've got a section I need to trim the shrub, then I need to clear from the shrub to the trellis, the archway, like I said the other day. Then I'm going to take all the pots off this area onto the grass, take out the rest of the leaves and weeds, and then I'll put the pots back. But I am going to wait a few more weeks before I do that, just because that does worry me about insects. And somebody posted the other day a picture of the little chrysalis. That's what I was looking for, the word the other day. They posted some little chrysalises that they'd found while gardening. Well, that might have really made them very pleased, but that would make me very concerned, because I feel like you're potentially disturbing things a little bit too early. So I know at this time of the year, anybody that loves the garden is absolutely itching to get out and to do more and more and more, but we've got to hang on for a little bit longer. In England, we have been known to get snow up until just after Easter. So although it feels quite mild at the moment, there's always a risk that things start springing into life, and then insects and pollinators, important pollinators, die. So the other thing that I just wanted to mention, you know, I said about my bench and painting my bench. Well, one person, it was Cami I think, said about painting it black, like a gloss black. Quite like the idea of that. But also I need to ask my husband what we can put on the feet, because at the moment the feet are sitting in mud and leaf matter, so they're slowly going to rot. Now I think you can get those little metal feet that just sit over the ends of the wood to protect the wood, so I'm going to look at that. And to be honest, maybe I shouldn't have been standing on it, but when I stood on it I did hear a little bit of a creak, so that's why I went and got the ladder. So you can see there's so many leaves that I've cut, so many, so no wonder I filled the brown bin up. And because here in England we pay for the brown bin, started off £30 a year, I think, when I first had it, £34 a year, and now it's like 70 something pound a year. So you do really want to get your money's worth. My mum makes sure it's full every 2 weeks religiously, whereas sometimes I don't put mine out, but it's important when we get mild weather to fill it up to get our money's worth. And you can also see that ground there where I need to seed. I'm going to get some seed which is particularly for not damp areas, shady areas, to make sure it's got the best chance of growing as possible. So thank you very much for following my video. Thank you for watching my video. Thank you for subscribing. Very much appreciate your support, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time in my video, Emma's Life in Norfolk. Bye bye.